Well, good morning, everybody. Sorry this is a little bit late this morning. I'm out here on the West Coast in Monroe, Washington, which is very close to Seattle, but I'm in Snohomish County, and I got in pretty late last night, and when I got in, I was just trying to catch up on all the news, and of course we saw yesterday this unfortunate incident of the UPS aircraft crashing here near Louisville. But I wanted to go look. I was trying to see, what I could see and learn about this, and I did notice on radar you can see the smoke plume from that particular incident right here. So this is just showing up here. There's Louisville, the radar nearby, and you can see where the accident was by just watching this plume of smoke being intercepted by the radar. I did go out and try to find, just to see if it showed up on satellite. Sometimes these large smoke plumes from incidents like this can show up, but I found something else that was really interesting. I had to save it and play it for you this way, but I know that Louisville's off the map, but as I was watching it yesterday, I was kind of fascinated by the fog, right? So now we're in Tennessee, and you can see all of the rivers, and you can also see the Smoky Mountains. And as it starts over one more time, just take note of this. That's why they call them the Smokies. You can just see the dense fog that just lines the valleys here as you go into parts of eastern Tennessee and over into North Carolina. Elsewhere around the country, though, it was important to note that across the southeast, numerous smoke plumes from fires down here in parts of Georgia, Alabama, getting over to Mississippi, some in southern Arkansas, and also some down here in parts of Louisiana. And as I looked into the southwest, again, we've been monitoring this situation here. We've been looking at it the last couple of weeks at least, of the risk of the fires that are happening in parts of north central Arizona. We have, I think, there's at least 7 new fires that have shown up here lately, and there's concern as we go forward through the next several weeks and months that this is going to be a problem given the La Nina that's in place. Sorry for the background noise. I actually cannot control the fan in the hotel room, so it just turns on and off whenever it feels like it. So that's what you can hear in the background. Okay, bigger picture. We do have relatively strong flow entering the Pacific Northwest. It's raining. It's been raining nonstop where I am here, and you can see the moisture starting to move its way a bit more into northern California. We did see yesterday some light showers that moved through parts of Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, through the Great Lakes. And we're going to keep an eye on this as we watch the rest of the day today of this low kind of spinning itself up the northeast and bringing with it some snow in that area. But if we look kind of at bigger picture, what's driving this pattern, I'm going to take you back to the Pacific because we just continue to watch, an energetic jet. I'm just talking about this, pushing across the Pacific, lining up storm systems that just seem to keep forming and reforming into the Gulf of Alaska and then diving their way into the west. If you want to see what it looks like on the surface winds, look, you can just see the lows stacked up here. Now, I'm concerned about another area of low pressure with this as well, as we just get a good idea of what's coming toward the United States. And the other area of low pressure is way over here. We have a couple of tropical systems to consider, the first being this one here that is going to go into parts of Southeast Asia. But the one that follows it, I believe it's got the name, I had it up here. Oh, it's just Tropical Depression 32. There's the risk of this getting pulled back into the jet stream flow. We can often watch these recurving typhoons or recurving tropical systems in the West Pacific be a major influencing pattern or influencing system on the jet stream pattern across the North Pacific, which overall for the next 15 days continues to favor a few ridges right here, which means the troughs dive in. They then turn into the more British Columbia and northwest United States. They then dive over the top and then exit what is right now a very, very strong and powerful North Atlantic jet. And this just seems to be where we're going to kind of find the flavor of this pattern in the coming days, maybe even weeks. But I am thinking that, and there's still a lot of evidence, that the main storylines we've been covering for the Northern Hemisphere are going to continue to play out as we go farther into November, December. And I want to review those with you here in the short term. Okay, first thing, strong winds. We have a lot of very windy conditions here. Flood watches out for this part of California. You can see the strong winds coming into Montana and then the wind issues here in the Northeast as this system exits. We've been talking all week about snow, so I want to give you the latest. You'll notice that in the next 7 days, that's all we're going out here. The snow that's coming through this part of the Rockies and then down at the Sierra Nevada is limited. It's all farther to the north. And then we're going to keep an eye on this particular corridor for some light snow, maybe some flurries, the lake effect event, and then watching parts of Quebec in the northeast. Now, that's the AI model forecast. This is the operational European forecast. Again, we see the snow chances here, maybe even some chance at seeing some flurries with the really cold air coming in next week, getting pretty far to the south here and hitting the Appalachian Mountains. But the lake effect in the models is real. It's showing up quite distinctly. And even the GFS is in on this as well. It's even got that Well, given the storm track, which you're going to see in a few minutes, it's got this corridor in through here that's really trying to lay down some snow, including some, parts of, maybe clipping Nebraska, but mostly hitting North and South Dakota, hitting this central corridor right along I-80, a little north of it here, and Iowa, continuing over towards Chicago, and then straight through to Detroit. That into London, Ontario as well. So I just got to keep an eye on it because it keeps showing up in the models, and we're going to keep that discussion alive here. Bigger story, I think, will be the temperature flip-flop, right? We know we have this major warm-up in the next few days. The heat's going to go to the west as a big Arctic plunge goes here day 5 through 10. And then there it is. That has been the concern, right? We've looked at those analog years earlier this week. Matt reinforced this yesterday. While the warm-up occurs back in the central U.S., the buildup of colder air here is something to monitor as we get in later into the month of November and start talking about the December temperature pattern. We do know that with that cold air that's coming through, and Matt did a great job of kind of highlighting this, we are expecting to get frosts very far to the south. Now remember, when I make this map, I call it frost risk map, and I make the cutoff 35 degrees Fahrenheit. I want to reiterate this with you because when you look at it, it's just showing where the National Digital Forecast Database is measuring a temperature at or below 35 degrees Fahrenheit in the next 7 days. I do that because when you hit 35, you'll have pockets that do get patchy frost with it, and that's why we designed the map this way. But we're talking about some pretty cold air. Ready? Here's the European model temperatures through Thursday, getting into Friday. Now watch. This weekend, there it is, Saturday, Sunday, Monday morning, right there. That's what we're looking at in terms of temperatures. And when I make my color bar here, I make a very hard break at 32 so you can see it. We also changed the coloring of the numbers over to yellow there. And then so we're going to watch Tuesday morning. That's 6 a.m. Tuesday morning. And you can see the European model's throwing a frost line all the way down here with, again, 30s getting into this part of Florida. We then watch the colder air try to exit east. There it goes. And then there's just a big warm-up that happens after. I mean, look at these temperatures rebounding quickly. So that's that narrative over the next 10 days of the temperature flip-flop. Okay, other parts of this. Notice on day 3, okay, we look out there and we start to see on the 8th the risk of severe weather coming into parts of Tennessee, Kentucky. Got to go look at that as well. But I want you to be aware that the storm predictions toss that out. And the other big storylines are these. Mid-November to mid-December, very active. And we've looked extensively at these areas around the Great Lakes that have very low surface and subsurface soil moisture. We know that goes down through the Delta. We know Texas has been drier. Parts of Montana have been drier. There's been all sorts of areas that need to get into an active early winter to help, knock back the drought that we've been dealing with for months across the country. Oh, and one last fun thing that just updated, the European model, the seasonal outlook. I just got it this morning. This is the new December, January, February outlook, which I'll detail again at the end of this video. So I don't know, is that like 8 stories we're keeping an eye on right now? But there's a lot to be talked about. Now, as I look at this December, January, February forecast, it is classic La Nina. Active here as the jet comes in like this and leaves like that. So you keep the Ohio River Valley back to the Delta, the Great Lakes, the Northeast active. We worry about drought in our Sun Belt, central part of the Cotton Belt, and in the Southeast. That's La Nina to the T. Now, I'm already concerned about these areas, especially the southern plains. So let's slow this down a little bit and take a look at the details. Because in the next 10 days, that whole region, because it just stays out of the flow. I mean, you saw it. It's coming in like this, over the top and exiting. That whole region staying out of the flow means that from the Front Range all the way over to the Delta, we're looking at this large area that has a very low probability of picking up any moisture at all. In fact, the chances of it staying under 1/10 of an inch are 90 to 100%. Now, we can find drier areas around that, but we need to just illustrate the fact that this particular region, in the near term, going into November, long before we even start talking about this risk, is drier. Now, on the wetter side of things, here's who's picking up an inch. Okay? Here's who's picking up 2 inches. Look at this moisture out west, 4 inches. Very heavy rain. That's why they have the flood watches posted in this area. Okay? If we look at the wind risk with this pattern, I just want to take you through the weekend. This gets us out to Sunday evening. We're expecting very strong winds throughout much of the Pacific Northwest, pockets of California. Montana, of course, getting into the plains. And you can also see, especially as the system exits today, the stronger winds that'll be in Pennsylvania and New York. But we're just getting into that very active time period again with respect to these systems. 7-day total precipitation. Okay, so this includes the liquid equivalent of snow. We've kind of honed in on where we're dry, but we can also see that clipper track right in through here and how it finishes in the Northeast, while the West just continues to take on the brunt of the flow coming off the Pacific Ocean. Very dry here. And the reason is this jet stream is attacking us from this direction, not from that direction. Sorry. It's not coming out of the south and west. And that's going to be a possible issue to be dealing with through the entirety of winter. Okay, so here we are. Let's finally watch some model runs. European is on the right, GFS is on the left. Okay, playing it forward, there's the deeper low leaving the northeast. You can see the interior snows here. Be interesting day, I think, to watch the Mount Washington Observatory in New Hampshire. And then you can see the system continue to plow into the west throughout the day on Thursday, getting into Friday. Now, our first little clipper system, Friday into Saturday, goes across the Great Lakes, drags its front through the Ohio Valley, and pulls it east. The following clipper system, this is one that has better access to colder air, comes out right here on Saturday into Sunday. And that's the one that sneaks through, just kind of watches it go back and forth over the day on Saturday. This is the one that sneaks out of Montana, through the Dakotas, into Iowa and Illinois. And you can see where the models are trying to toss in some snow with this. It's as that system exits, man, I need a little bit more sleep. I can't quite speak very clearly today. You can see the lake effect coming in with the very cold air that we're expecting Monday into Tuesday, diving in on that high pressure cell. And I would not rule out the chances of getting snow flurries with this. You kind of saw the forecast. It's there. We then play it forward, and then that high goes east, takes with it the cold air, and then boom, we just warm right back up again. And now the jet tries to dip a little farther to the south, bringing more of California into play, but we're all the way out there next Thursday into Friday. And that's going to be a system to watch, because we know that getting into week 2, this low is going to try to do something we've not seen the forecast models do very well, which is return a system that can dig down south, which might help this drought issue developing in the southern plains. But that's why I showed you, it's not this week. We're not talking about it this week. It's next week that could occur. Now, we brought up the snow, so we better get in there and look at some probability maps. This is just the chance over the next 7 days. Okay, so we're out there to next Wednesday morning looking at who has the best odds, so it's a probability map, of grabbing an inch. All right, so there it is. That's the new European ensemble. Here's the chance at 3 inches. So understand that we're not talking about much into this quarter, but starting up in the Canadian Prairie, getting over to Ontario, Quebec, and then certainly downwind of the Great Lakes, sure. That's the chance at 6 inches. Now, this is going to be a very hard forecast in this area because of just how much moderation. I mean, you got to have brutally cold air in order to make that much snow, given how warm the lakes are. They have too much of a moderating effect. So I want everybody that's along, the downwind side of the Great Lakes to just remember what typically happens with the first lake effect snowfall forecast of the year, right? Just remember, they're typically not good. You'll have it, but it's just don't ever rely on the amounts. But that's your kind of quick look at that snowfall forecast. I'm very interested in week 2. And one of the big reasons is by Thursday the 13th, the 14th, the 15th, that's next Saturday, right? We are finally seeing the jet stream try to drive a trough that has no tilt to it over the mountains, and it'll eject. And I'll be honest with you, I'm thinking about severe weather. I'm thinking about what this could do to just ignite the center part of the country with just a big mid-November storm system. And the models are picking up on it, right? Look at all of them out there at week 2. See how they're driving? Hit refresh on that on accident. There we go. See how they're driving systems in? And that's going to be of interest as we get out there farther into this pattern. So watch that week 2. I mean, the CPC's nailed it too. Look at that. I think we've got an interesting story for that. Let's call it November 12th through the 18th time frame. Okay, temperature-wise, I wanted to show you that the cold air that's coming in has an expiration date, right? I showed you the temperatures earlier, but let's look at it again. This is for Minneapolis. I got stuck in Minneapolis a little while last night, so I decided to go back there. So we're warm through Thursday, Friday. There's the cool down into early next week. So we bottom out Monday morning or Tuesday morning with temperatures, way below freezing here. And then we ride it back up. See the warm up? And we're just going to keep doing this for a while. That's just how the pattern's going to shape up. If you want to see what the max temperatures look like, here's today's highs, tomorrow's highs on Thursday. But then watch, there's Friday, Saturday. Look at the cold air starting to come in. Still hot in Texas, but as you get farther out there, now the major cool down occurs. That's Sunday, Monday's high temperatures. Now we're in the 40s, 50s here, 30s north. Then we get out there to Tuesday, and that's when the cold air bottoms out in the southeast. I do want to show you that, though, looking at minimum temperatures. Here's today's min temperatures. There's tomorrow. That's Thursday. Getting into Friday, there's the big warm-up. Remember, we have the severe weather risk coming into this area on day 3. Then we get into Saturday, the front passes Sunday, Monday, Tuesday morning. Okay, that's your cold air coming through. But as you saw with Minnesota, I mean, watch, there's the next 5 days. There's the cold air sinking through. West is warmer. Now watch. Pattern warms back up in the central U.S. It stays open, flowing, and moving, and that gives us that cadence. Is it about a week on, week off? Yeah, I guess we could go ahead and call it that. But many of us are wondering what it looks like beyond this time frame. So I'm going to show you the GFS extended, starting at the end of week 2. Week 3 drops colder air into the west. See it? And then we noticed in the forecast a buildup of colder air here compared to average. And some of the models, by the time we approach Thanksgiving, are letting that out. Can you see it? That's the corridor through which we think the end of the month could finish cold, and the start of December could be cold as well. So it's just building on the narratives we've been discussing, for the last several days here, and we're continuing to see some support in that. It's not just support here, but it's support in the analogs. Next, is the polar vortex contributing? To be honest with you, we don't often talk about polar vortex linking up with the tropospheric vortex in November. Man, if it was later in December, January, February, even March, yeah. But the polar vortex is expected to weaken and wobble, and it's going to come outside right here. Follow that thick, dark line there. It's going to come outside of its normal average. So there's just some additional support at the end of the month. That's all I'm trying to tell you. With the polar vortex wobbling and weakening, that it could be supportive of some colder air starting in Western Canada, coming through the northern plains into the plains, Midwest, Mid-South, Southeast, East Coast. Okay, that's what this is saying. All right. Otherwise, we are watching the MJO. It'd be great if the MJO came way over here into phase 8-1. That would be super supportive of this occurring, this more active cold pattern. But as Matt and I have been discussing, man, I just don't know if it gets out of phase 6-7. I mean, we look out there and we just see, it's trying to live in phase 6, maybe touch phase 7. But the reality is the trade winds living on La Nina, living on the Indian Ocean dipole being negative, they're doing what these arrows suggest. And if they do what those arrows suggest, and we just keep our best rising motion, look at it right here, all the way through December, somewhere 5, 6, 7, somewhere in that vicinity, history would tell us to watch out for this pattern. So I'm just going to get you that first week of December. There's some ridging here, and there's troughing there. And you're saying, what does that mean? That means that this corridor in between, I'll just kind of draw an arrow as best I can here, that corridor tends to be the corridor through which storm systems attack the U.S. So they come over this ridge, they hit the Rockies, they hit Montana, they come through the plains, they clip, and they make the turn. And that would be the source of cold air around the Hudson Bay as an example. Now that's just the MJO relationship. I've showed you the other things, right? We looked, at the correlation maps on Monday. What this does to the Southwest, keeps it warmer, drier. The Pacific Northwest, I don't think you stay dry in this scenario. I think you continue to see moisture, but I'm concerned about California, which is why I'm so appreciative that the week 2 forecasts are trying to drop a system into California, because I don't want to find ourselves just stuck in phase 6 in December and having warm, dry conditions throughout the Southwest. Last bit here, just want to show you the European model forecast from October was predicting this for La Nina, and it came in there. Do you see that? It came in on the warmest of these forecasts. We have a new one out. It's the new November. And now as we look at it, just take note. Will we likely stay here? I think there's a pretty good chance we do. And what this suggests is we maintain the weak La Nina, which is why I showed you those correlation maps on Monday. Put it in the report if you all get my report. And then we saw in through here the chances of us peaking early, dying quickly, transitioning to El Nino by maybe spring or summer. I mean, that's what the model's calling for. Now, we can't put a nail in that just yet. But what we can do is see how the model responds. If you don't mind, I want to do it on a global scale, okay? We'll continue to analyze this throughout the week. But what I want you to see here is I want you to look at the monthly pressure pattern. I want to take you back here to November. All right, see all this low pressure? The models are attempting by December to replace it. Bring the pressure up. And if they bring the pressure up in this area, we're going to get more flow doing something like that. And if we keep it there into January, this is a huge signal for the Pacific Northwest, the Plains, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley East. This is not the right signal for this area. We can't have all this higher than normal pressure in here and hope to get something coming to California early this winter. So what this does, let me show you the 3-month seasonal prediction on precip. That's the December, January, February outlook globally. I want you to see something. See, this corridor is wetter, that corridor is wetter, but we're concerned about the dryness here, maybe the dryness in the southeast. Elsewhere, Argentina, southern Brazil shows up drier. Normal rains in through here, drier northeast tip of Brazil. The eastern side of Australia, wetter. Look at the Indian Ocean dipole, making it dry there and wet here. Do you see this? Look at this. That's just flow going like that. And you're going, how does this work? Well, if I could draw this in 3D, there's sinking motion here or rising motion there, and it makes a circulation. Now, I know I drew it on top of a horizontal plane map, but these arrows are going up. And then you have this. See that? That's negative IOD and La Nina being played out in the December, January, February forecast. Might as well keep going. This is now the January, February, March. Still see the same kind of issues here. And February, March, April. Now, I am curious, what are they doing in terms of temperatures? Now, I'm going to tell you something. This model has a known warm bias. Okay, can you see it? Look at all this. But to see near normal temperatures here in the forecast, that would actually tell me to tell you, expect that to be our anchor to cold air throughout this winter. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I am going to try to get a little more sleep before I give a talk here in several hours, and then we'll talk again on Friday. Matt will pick this up tomorrow. I'm sure he'll dig deeper into this for you. Have a good one. Be safe. We'll talk soon. Thanks.